So just so everyone knows that it's going to get recorded so that I can send it to everyone afterward. But basically, there's Box Sync, Box DAV, and Box Drive. The three technologies are very similar, and I'm going to go over each one and kind of explain the differences, and then let you guys choose which one works best for you. The first of the three is Box Sync. When we first started with Box.com, Box Sync was the only one available, and so it was installed on most people's machines. And so what it does anyone know, if everyone looks at my diagram here, you can see that there's the cloud-based where the data is stored. So that's like the website, box.com. And you can see how there's this single arrow that's pointing up and down that's representing that it syncs the cloud with your PC regularly. So if a file is saved in one place, it's immediately copied to the other place and it stays in sync. So what this allows for is offline data. So if you need to be able to use your data offline, this is probably the best option. Now, the problem with syncing is what if in the cloud you have more data than your computer hard drive has, and you sync the entire cloud to your computer? Does anyone know what would happen?
You're going to run out of room.
You're going to run out of room. And so Box was aware of this. So if you notice, it says selective data stored. They basically made it so that you can't, well, you can still do it, but you select what you want to sync, because if you sunk everything, you may fill up your hard drive, like Jeff said. So I'm just going to quickly pull over a computer. I'm remoted into one of the conference room laptops, and I will show you an example. Okay, so typically to get to a Box Drive or Box Sync or Box DAV, you'll open up File Explorer. Hopefully most of you know what File Explorer is. You'll select the little Box Sync here. Now you'll notice that I have no folders in here. Well, that's because I haven't told it to sync anything. So the way you would sync it is you'd open up the website, and I have a folder here called Test Folder, and it's just empty. But just for this demo, I'm going to go to the three little dots, go to More Actions, and I'm going to check Box the Sync. The second I did that, it should start syncing that folder with my computer. So if I go back to my folder here, and we right-click on this little icon here, we can hit, you can see that it takes a minute, and then it'll sync up. So just give it just a minute. We'll come back to it in just a minute. It'll automatically put that folder in there as synced, okay? So the next...
Jason, let me ask you a quick question. That is syncing our computer to the cloud. It's not syncing the cloud to our computer.
It does both ways.
It kind of goes both ways, right? On this one.
Yep.
Okay.
So Box Sync will go both ways. It literally, if you have this little check mark here, it'll make that folder available on the website and on the computer. And it'll continually sync them. And the content, meaning that if you lose internet connection, those files will be available to you even though you're offline. And the minute you become online again, it'll say, hey, I noticed this file changed, and it'll sync it back up to the cloud and keep it in sync. Now, there's problems sometimes where something doesn't sync right, and it'll make two files, or it'll say conflicted copy or whatever. It's just because there was a change in the cloud and on the PC, and it didn't know which file to keep. So just keep that in mind. Box Sync is actually pretty complicated, especially if you have multiple machines and different situations and you're working offline. That's why I've kind of steered away from it. It just is kind of cumbersome. So I'm going to minimize this back out of the way and come back over to my diagram. which leads us into Box Dav and Drive. So because Box Sync had this problem of creating conflicted copies and you know, if you saved a file on your machine and you didn't let it finish uploading to the internet, and then you went to another location and got on another PC and tried to access that file, you were like, well, that file's not there. And it's like, well, it's not there because it never had enough time to upload to the internet before you disconnected and moved to the other place. So that's when Box Dav came out. Now, Box Dav basically stores everything in the cloud, like my little diagram here in the green box shows, is that the data is stored in the cloud, and you're basically uploading and downloading it through File Explorer, and it's not in sync, meaning it's always stored on the internet. So when you open it, it's literally opening it from the internet, and when you save it, it goes right back to the internet. It is never stored on your PC, meaning if you turned off your computer, it's gone. It's not. And if you hit save, it'll upload it back to the cloud. But you're always working with one file, and that file is stored in the cloud. So Box Dav works really well, and there's actually not a whole lot wrong with it, except for to set up Box Dav was kind of cumbersome. I actually had to have IT Now create some special script that we had to run and make it work, and a lot of times attaching files through Outlook sometimes would give us problems. So as time went on, we switched to a program called NetDrive, and NetDrive was just another program that basically takes all these technologies and makes them accessible without you guys having to set them up. So some of you guys probably have NetDrive on your PCs right now, and that's totally fine. You can still welcome to use it. The benefit of switching from Box Sync, Box Drive, Box Dav Box Sync, Box Dav, and NetDrive to Box Drive is that we no longer have to purchase and install another program to do that connection. And so let me go back to my diagrams here. And so Box Dav and Box Drive work pretty similar, except for NetDrive, which is the one in the green, would require additional software. So I'm going to write that right here. So this would be additional setup and software, right? And there's a cost involved because we had to purchase NetDrive for each user, okay? So Box.com, I'm sure, was aware of all these problems that businesses had in trying to access their data, so they invented Box Drive. And if I go to Box Drive's website, you can see that it's in public beta, and it has been for the last year. I have been testing it, and a lot of users already have it in the last year. So even though it's still in beta, it is open to the public for use, and that's why I'm teaching you about it now. So Box Drive has all the benefits of Box Dav and NetDrive, except for it adds one benefit, and it's to cache the files that the users has opened. Does anyone know what that means?
Does that mean it'll basically keep the work you're working on? It kind of backs it up as you're working on it, so you don't lose it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Basically, the files that you use most often, it'll actually keep a local copy on your desktop, or not on your desktop, but stored in a cache, meaning that it'll load quicker. So if I was using Box Dav and I downloaded a 7 GB file, which is huge, right? It would take forever. Every time I wanted to open it, I'd have to wait for it to download the whole 7 GB before it would open. Box Drive has actually figured out a way to cache it. So if I downloaded it one time, I'd wait for it to download. As soon as it finished downloaded, it would open it. As it's opened, I'm now making changes, and it saves them immediately back to the cached copy, and then the cached copy slowly uploads to the internet as you're working. And so let's say you're done with work for that day, and then you come back tomorrow, guess what? That local copy is still there. And so it's still quick to access. You don't have to wait for it to download the entire thing again. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about that?
So is that as long as you have the document open on your local computer?
It uses a syncing technology to try and best pick the files that it needs to cache. So it'll keep that cache as long as it feels that you are going to use it.
So if it's something you use every day, whether you're opening or closing it or not, it's going to keep it in the cache so it loads.
It definitely will, yes. It'll learn what you want to save locally and what not to.
Cool.
If you open it, it immediately caches it. But after a few days, if it notices that you're not using it again and it needs more space for another file, it'll remove it from the cache. So over here on this link right here where it says box drives versus sync, Jeff, would you mind reading this section right here?
Yeah, note, Box Drive does locally cache files that the user has opened. Box Drive's cache size limit is based on your free disk space, 50% of available space, and has a maximum limit of 25 gigabytes. Once this limit has been reached, files that have gone unaccessed the longest will be removed first. Also, if a cache file has a new version created on Box Drive will discard the locally cached version.
So does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. So moving on, does anyone have any questions or confused about the difference between the three? Now, let me show you, I'm going to quickly, before you ask those questions, I'm going to quickly show you Box Drive versus Box Sync in real life, okay? So I'm going to minimize this, and on my PC here, before I even show you, I want to show you guys that I actually never store any files on my computer. So if I go to my downloads, it's empty. If I go to my documents, there's something that we just downloaded for GoToMeeting. Pictures, all blank. Music, blank. My desktop, blank. No, I don't store anything on my machine. Everything is in my Box account. And it's all accessible right here. So I typically work out of my work folder right here. This is Jason. So this is like my desktop or my documents that you guys are using. And all of my stuff is here. Now, if we remember when I was using Box Sync, let's see if it ever actually updated. It still hasn't. These are the same. These are the problems of why. There it is. So test folder. So remember we synced just that one folder. So this machine is using Box Sync. On the website, I chose to only have one folder synced. So when I access my Box folder, right here, Box Sync, through the Explorer, I only have access to that one folder. Does that make sense? I only have access to what I choose to sync. Okay. Whereas Box Drive, move this one back out of the way, you can see here that I have access to all my files, including that test folder. Does that make sense? So, and it's really up to you to choose which one you'd like. If you guys need help switching from Box Sync to Box Drive or vice versa, just create a ticket and we'll walk you through it. Even if you have Box DAV or NetDrive, I would suggest making the switch to Box Drive because of the cached scenario. It'll speed up your interaction with your files tremendously because you don't have to wait for it to download every time. And that's pretty much the basics of the three programs. There is a fourth way to access your files, which a lot of you probably know, is you, in a web browser, you access box.com website and you download it and it comes to your PC. Does anyone know the bad part about downloading the copy? Like what do I mean when I say it downloads a copy? Nobody knows? When I download a copy, it means I'm physically making a second file. So any other time I'm using box.com, I'm touching the original file, meaning if I access it through Box Drive, I open a file, I make a change to the file, and I save the file, and it's always with the original file. If I go to box.com and download a file, I have made a copy of it. Any changes from there on will not be updated to the cloud. It will only be affected onto that copy. And that copy has to be uploaded on top of the old one. Do you guys want me to show you a demo of what I'm referring to? Or does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'll just show you guys real quick just so that you understand. So here's my box.com. I'm going to create a new, say, Word document real quick, and we're just going to call it test Word, and we hit create. So now it's going to open it. If I open it with a tool called, I'll show you real quick, it just did it for me. So if some of you might have this right here where it'll say, open this with your desktop. If you do that, you're actually accessing the file directly, that's okay. But if you click the download button right here, and you download it to your desktop, I've actually made 2 copies, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I say, hi, Jason, and I hit save, it saved to my desktop and not to my box. So if I open this file here, you can see that hi, Jason is not there. You see, I just opened the file from box and it's not there even though we saved it. And that's because on the desktop, or wherever I saved it, was it my documents? Downloads. Oh, it's under downloads. If I open the copy, you'll see that it says hi, Jason. This is where people get confused. They'll make changes and save it somewhere, and then they're like, hey, my change isn't in box. So just be cautious of that. And that's pretty much it. If you guys decide that you want to switch over to Box Drive, you're welcome to do so. You need to uninstall either Box Sync or uninstall NetDrive or uninstall Box DAV and reinstall Box Drive. My recommendation is that everyone uses Box Drive. They have completely figured out all the bugs and problems of all the ways to use files. The only time I would recommend using Box Sync is if you work without internet very, very often. So that concludes the training. If anyone has any questions or want to see it again or a demo or anything like that, just let me know. Does anyone have any questions?
Well,
I don't think so.
Jason, for me, I mean, so what you're saying is I probably need to go to Box Drive or learn it or have some help in changing over.
Are you currently saving your stuff into Box?
I believe I am through your instructions.
Do you save it to Box Sync? Do you know?
I really don't know.
Okay.
I assume so.
But what I would recommend doing is create a ticket and just say, I need some help understanding where I'm saving my files and that you'd like to save them to Box. And Wasatch or myself will jump on there and try to give you a go and help you set it up and help you save it. I can tell you that.
I'm sorry. I know that I do save to Box because
okay.
I know that I do that.
You're probably using Box Sync or Box Drive or NetDrive.
It is Box Sync. Box Sync, yes. So.
If you open up File Explorer, it'll say either just plain old Box, or it'll say Box Sync, or it'll say NetDrive.
Yeah. Box Sync.
Okay, so you probably need to send in a ticket to have that uninstalled and to have Box Drive installed. It'll give you access to all your files and it'll run smoother. And for those of you that are listening, and there's probably a lot of people, there's 7 people out of 100 people that work for the company are here. Those of you that don't save your files to Box, feel free to ask anyone who's ever had their computer die. I know Greg was one of them. There's been a few others. What happens to their files and all the hard work that they have when their stuff's not in box. The other beauty thing about it is it's so easy to access. It's just like accessing your C drive. Like literally, if I'm a salesperson and when I click save and I save to desktop versus box, it's the same amount of effort. It's the same thing. It goes to the internet and your stuff's backed up and you don't have to worry about losing it, and you can access it anywhere in the world. You can be on vacation and be like, hey, I need that file from you, and you could access it. So
Okay.
Jeff, did you have some questions?
No. I do. In my File Explorer, it just says box. It doesn't say, it's like yours, it says box. It doesn't say box.
Yeah, I put box drive on it when I switched you over.
Awesome. Okay.
So you're probably
Sounds good.
set. I would just, like
Alrighty.
I said, recommend anytime you click File Save As, save to box.
Okay.
And you can,
Sounds
you know,
good.
like I know it defaults to My Documents, but just clicking that one extra step into box makes a huge difference when your computer dies, especially those of you who have laptops and it gets stolen.
Yep.
The day it gets stolen, you'd be surprised how excited you are when you realize all your files are still safe in box.
Oh.
Jason, I have a question. So I save everything to Box, but I don't use Box Sync or anything, but it pops up every time I start my computer. Is there a way to like disable it so it doesn't do that? I don't even log in or anything. I just exit out of it.
Yeah, so what that is that pop-up screen is probably Box Sync asking you to sign in, and then it would give you all the access to what I'm just showing you. It sounds like you're just using the website, which is totally fine, but it's like 10 extra steps when saving a file versus just saving it to your Box drive. So if you don't want that to pop up, you have to literally uninstall Box.
Box Sync,
And
though,
if
right?
you send in a ticket saying, please uninstall Box Sync, we can get that done for you.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have a question? All right. I'm going to stop the recording and end this if you guys have any more questions, and then I'll upload this to YouTube and send it out to everyone.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Bye.